Hello and good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us today for our LinkedIn Live presentation from We Communications. We Talk. And today we are talking about GEO, Generative Engine Optimisation. How it is that we optimize the experience of your customers, your reputation, your brands within the various large language models. So thank you very much for joining us. My name is Ben Fisher, and I lead the tech and the health teams here at We Communications.
And I'm Robert. I'm Insights and Analytics Associate Director here at We, primarily focused on all things research, analytics, media monitoring, and then most recently over the past year, GEO and LLM monitoring.
So today, we'd like to give a quick overview and share our journey, our experience of the last year or so. Just how rapidly the landscape has changed and it's continuing to change. We'd like to share some of our thoughts, our insights, our reflections, because we are definitely only at the start of this journey. I'd really like to convince you of the critical importance of generative engine optimization for brands and for businesses, that there is a very real and completely new challenge ahead. So please do feel free to drop questions into the chat. We'll respond at the time or at the end, and there'll be time to have that discussion. So for decades in communications, our job has been how to understand and how to influence people, audiences, stakeholders, reporters, buyers, the public. That's what communications has always been built on. But now AI is the new battleground for influence. It is something new and it's arrived quickly. There are some parallels with search engine optimization, but this really is different. This is involving LLMs, large language models. We have to understand how to influence the algorithm, how to influence the machine. Generative AI engines are already shaping the information we receive, how brands appear. They're choosing their own sources, they're forming narrative, and they're presenting these answers back to the world. So whether we are involved or not in that process. And because people are clicking less and relying more on AI-generated answers, the story these systems tell becomes the experience of the brand. It's a huge shift, and it will take up more and more of the brand experience that people have. GEO is how we stop guessing, how we can influence this process, how we stop swinging in the dark. It's how we start to truly understand and actively guide the story that the machines tell about us, about our brands, about our companies. It is about optimizing the experience of our stakeholders when they are asked questions that are relevant to our brands and our business, how we shape that environment within AI. So let's take a step back and take a look at just how quickly things have changed.
Yeah, so I think, a year ago, a lot of these terms were very niche. Some of these tools people had never heard of, and we've just seen the growth explode over the past year. And when we talk about AI or chatbots, LLM monitors or LLM models, we're really talking about Claude, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilots, kind of the list goes on, and growing all the time as well. So they will fall under this kind of umbrella of LLM, which is large language models. And we also know how these models and LLM tools are changing the search landscape. So AI search is exploding. We've got some stats up there as well. You can see it's also shifting how people are using these search engines. We're seeing traditional search engine traffic decline. We're seeing people rely solely on their own AI apps, if it's the ChatGPT app on their phone, if it's the kind of desktop Claude app. And even if they don't have those dedicated apps, it's kind of being shoved in their face anyway with Google and their kind of automatic default implementation of those Gemini overview things you get when you search every single time on Google. I think recently it's at least 60% of a Google search will result in that AI automated overview. So people are being exposed to it, whether they like it or not, on a daily, hourly, minute-by-minute basis. And what's happening is these AI answers, these overviews, or what people are being served in their kind of apps is becoming the truth. People aren't often clicking away, double checking answers, double checking citations. That is the source of truth, and that's obviously massively impactful for brand perception, kind of customer journey, purchase decision making. So GEO is kind of the process of monitoring that, and then also then optimizing that your brand for visibility in future.
So increasingly, this statement will be true. What large language models know about your brand will be increasingly what people know about your brand. AI models are drawing information from traditional media outlets for their answers, for corporate owned content, but also from social, YouTube, Reddit forums. And in a very real way, they're deciding what we see. And they are becoming the front page of the internet.
And being such new technology, there's just a huge flurry of definitions that are being floated about. Some of them are kind of temporary, some of them are sticking and becoming kind of industry standards. So obviously we've got GEO, which is Generative Engine Optimisation. So that's the process of really optimizing owned content, earned content, social content, thought leadership content, long form, everything, influencer content even, for the AI models to read it in the most accurate and controlled and relevant way. We've also got zero-click search. So as I mentioned, particularly in Google, people, traditionally they would search for something, they would get a long list of blue links, they would go through each one, they'd click through to the website, they'd kind of trawl the website a few pages to try and find the answer to their query. That's completely changed now. People are searching in an AI tool, they're searching in Google, or they're just getting the AI overview, or they're getting a Gemini answer, or they're using their own tools. They're very often not clicking through to the individual citations. So that's why we see web traffic drop, and that's the term we call zero-click search. They're getting their full answer within that AI overview answer. There's no need for them to click to the original website that's hosting this content. There are a few other terms as well that, because we're in this kind of initial year or two, people are kind of making up their own terms or rehearsing other types of terms. So there's AEO, there's AIO, there's LLM visibility, monitoring visibility optimization. But generally, the industry has focused and kind of agreed on GEO, which is the Generative Engine Optimization. And it's not just consumers. We're reading ongoing reports around B2B and B2B2C, and every sector and every purchase journey, no matter what the product or service, is being influenced by these AI zero-click search models. So some stats here, around 80% of B2B decision makers are also being admitted to using the AI search bots and the AI technology directly within the initial research stage. That then continues throughout the purchase journey and decision making. So shortlisting as well, the AI models, because they're pulling in so many sources and so many reviews and everything into one, their kind of trustworthy score is really at the top, even above traditional vendor sites and traditional review sites. And that again continues further on into the purchase journey. So across North America and across EMEA, this was a survey done April last year, over 1,000 B2B decision makers. AI chatbots across both areas were some of the most trusted sources, even right up to the purchase decision. So it's not just consumer goods, it's not just services, it's very big B2B purchase decisions as well.
So this new landscape brings a very different and difficult set of challenges for brands. For the first time, we're dealing with systems that don't just find information, they generate it afresh, and they can change it, they can manipulate it. And that means brands are facing two big risks. One is, do they show up at all? Like, are you even relevant? And also, are you showing up incorrectly, suboptimally, in a negative light? So generative engine optimization is designed to solve exactly these problems. It helps ensure that when people turn to AI tools for information, the details they get about the brand are visible and up to date. Algorithmic ethos is a term used in the research. It's the perception of trustworthiness created when a large language model is so fluent and confident in its style that it makes it sound credible wherever the sources are coming from. This relates to a model of persuasion set out by Aristotle in the rhetorical triangle, which argues that if you want to persuade someone of your argument, you need three things: a logical argument, which is logos, an emotional argument, which is ethos, and you need to speak from a position of credibility, which is ethos, how authoritative you are. It's the second L in LLM that gives these models such authority. It's why we find the answers so compelling, because of the incredible speed and confidence with which LLMs use language. As humans, we're impressed, and so we're persuaded by the speed and forcefulness of how arguments are articulated. And LLMs do this. They generate responses with such speed, such confidence, such fluency, that the language itself feels authoritative, even when the facts may not be. So these systems become both the gateway to knowledge and a source of knowledge, sometimes good quality, sometimes bad, but in all cases, it's highly trusted by the people that use it. And that's exactly why shaping the answers matter so much. There's a huge opportunity here for communications as a discipline. Large language models don't invent their answers out of thin air. They rely on sources they trust most. And right now, that's journalism, corporate blogs, institutions, and press releases. And these are exactly the spaces where communications already has influence. In most markets, press releases, editorial coverage, trusted institutions, content make up a large portion of what it is that large language models cite. And in some cases, press releases alone stand for a meaningful share of all the citations. As we know, around 95% of all LLM citations come from non-paid, credible media sources, the very channels that communications and communicators shape every day. So if we don't like how our brand is showing up in LLM answers, we're not powerless. We actually have the tools to change it. We have the expertise by improving the quality, clarity, consistency of the stories that we produce and publish and communicate. And by making sure the right information is easy for the machine and the algorithm to understand and cite, we can directly influence what people see within an AI environment. This is a moment where communications can lead, not follow, by shaping the narratives that shape the generated answers.
So yeah, that's where we come up and designed our primary tool called GEO Compass. So this is our product that we've rolled out over the past 8 months, and it's a very methodical and step-by-step process where we initially do a full landscape audit of the competitors and our own brand across multiple prompts, typically between 10 and 30 prompts, which we'll get into. We then run that for 4 weeks. We want to get a really decent baseline of data. Following that, we turn all this data into an actionable and kind of clear set of recommendations. So how can we actually start optimizing our own content as well as media lists and earned content to really improve the visibility of our client and their products and services? And then the third kind of phase is ongoing monitoring and optimization, typically on a quarterly basis, to see how our performance and competitors have changed, if any new sources or if the models, algorithms have changed how the benchmarking and performance occurs. So we've got really down to quite a precise art now of this GEO Compass service. And as I said, we've been doing it for 8 months now. We've close to 20 clients doing this. So it's a pretty robust system we've developed. I've got one example just to kind of take you through the process of how we do this as well. So the initial one, when I was talking about prompts, so prompts are the actual questions or the wording that we want to track that people say. It's very important that we design prompts, obviously in mind with the client's business objectives and product kind of attributes, but also it needs to match the natural language of how people actually will be talking to these models. It's very different to SEO where you're kind of just punching in a few keywords. This really is a bit more natural and a bit more advanced. So we work with clients to ensure the key attributes are included, but also matched within the natural language. And then, of course, we work with native speakers to ensure everything is in the native language of that market for the extra level of accuracy. So this is an example one for a consumer electronics brand. So this is some examples for headphones. You can see a list of all the different attributes. There's not too much overlap. It needs to be very clear if it's around a specific feature, a cost, a design element, a battery life kind of question. Everything is in kind of very segmented prompts just to make the analysis super granular and accurate. Then it's the big job. Then we start analyzing the data. So we can start looking at benchmarking, where our competitors and brands all sit, the sentiment they're getting. The tools typically pull every 24 hours because we know these models are constantly changing. We know new content's being constantly published, so we don't want to take a single point in time. So we typically look at 4 to 6 weeks data collection, and you can kind of see the volatility day by day, but then we get a kind of overall leaderboard as well. We want to look at where the competitors are kind of gaining advantage. We want to look at the volatility levels within everything and establish some key benchmarks as well. And then, we can get very granular and very detailed, but I think some really key interesting points here is when you look at that circular graph on the right-hand side, this is for consumer electronics, and we can see the dark blue, the types of sources that are that are kind of influencing these models and feeding those answers. That dark blue is editorial. So think review sites, media coverage, listicles, full reviews, comparisons. It's making up, around 70% of the influence of the citations within these answers. So a massive insight already for consumer electronics is how important being in those editorial pieces are when you launch new products. Orange as well is a huge chunk. So this is corporate pages. So your own brand page, your competitor brand pages, large retailers. So Argos, for example, in the UK, or Currys. They're super important and granular because they've got all the product specs, they've got embedded customer reviews, again, a lot of detailed insight there, and they've got all the specs and pricing as well. And then that third main chunk that we're seeing as well is UGC, so user-generated content. The primary ones we've been seeing across the board is YouTube. So YouTube reviews, YouTube kind of tutorials, a lot of detailed granular analysis and kind of commentary around a product or service, as well as Reddit, because we know Reddit gets so granular and there's so much detail, there's no kind of character limits, the threads are very kind of well organized. These AI models love that kind of detail from a user perspective. So we can get very detailed and kind of focused on the actual domains as well as the formats that are influencing these models beyond our own content. So again, this feeds into a kind of LLM GEO optimized media plan and strategy. Going even further, we can go really granular and focused, laser focused onto the actual articles, web pages, listicles, reviews. We can track the exact publications, the journalists, the specific articles that are being cited and quoted and informing these answers as much as possible. Again, we can go to kind of 200-300 if we want to. And again, that really is a strong tactical data-backed way of updating media lists, kind of target lists, journalist lists, publications that we might not have thought of in the past. They might now be really impactful when it comes to AI, depending on how they kind of format and write their content. It's also quite interesting for this brand, particularly how it's not just top tier nationals or internationals that are influencing these LLM models. They want respected, robust sources, but they also want very granular, detailed articles. So a lot of the time they'll go to specific niche specialist trade pieces or pieces that are specifically created for an article. So in the case of consumer tech, there's things like CNET and other tech-related ones rather than just tier one. So again, it's been quite informative to a lot of clients who always just want top-tier national and international. That's not always going to deliver the same impact as very specialist publications in your particular sector. We turn all this data, all this kind of number crunching, lots of graphs and data files and Excel sheets into a fully fledged GEO strategy. So step 1 to 4 goes from the visibility audit, from all the keywords and customizing and kind of perfecting the AI prompts, all the way to benchmarking and kind of assessing the owned website, down to the GEO strategy and messaging. Again, how do we optimize the messaging, the content, the templates to really get into those AI models? Then it's a full introspective look on the owned website. Again, media center, press releases, how is that being consumed by the AI models? And then the final step is around kind of optimizing, monitoring, going beyond our own content and into earned content, earned kind of media strategies and plans, as well as even influencers, particularly on YouTube, to see how we can elevate that as well.
And there's another example here in a completely different space from a healthcare brand, so not consumer, in looking at the accuracy and reach of health messaging within rare diseases. When we analysed how patients across Europe search for information within LLMs, we found something really interesting, that the answers were overwhelmingly driven by US-based sources, not European ones. And this wasn't just major institutions or medical bodies, but in one case, highly biased, the most influential source was one single private US doctor offering treatment for a condition that had no licensed products within Europe. Yet European patients were still searching for help and for information in their local language, and they're receiving information that is being shaped by commercial sources in a different country, in a different healthcare system, where the product has different licenses. And it shows a critical truth that LLMs will give us an answer, even when the information isn't relevant or appropriate for the local environment. And that's why it's essential that we actively understand and shape the content landscape. We need to make sure that accurate, local, regulatory aligned messaging exists, because if it doesn't, we're simply being passive while patients are served information that is inaccurate, inappropriate, or out of step with how care works and the regulatory landscape in their local country. So remember that the aim here isn't perfection. We're never going to be able to turn up as perfectly as we would like to be within LLMs. It's not possible. It is about optimization. It's controlling what you can control to make a difference. And what we're trying to do is give people the best possible experience of your brand in an AI generated environment. All the examples that we've shown have one thing in common. A deep look at the sources shaping the model's answers is needed, followed by clear steps and understanding of where these sources come from, processes and systems to improve that environment, so a brand can show up more accurately, more often.
Yeah, and as Ben said, perfection's not achievable, and it's got to not the own goal, but the first step is just to get started. We've got clients at a range of the spectrum, investing in GEO. A lot of them are looking just to benchmark and just to kind of dip their toe in and see where they stand compared to competitors. We scale that up to then looking at influential sources, fully into kind of looking for new YouTube influencers, new channels to kind of reach out and send products to. We've got media lists and media strategies being used using the data from our GEO tool. We've got multi-market clients where we've got a client with 8 markets where we're looking across 8 different languages, 8 regions, about 30 prompts in each one. We're with pharmaceutical brands, we're with B2B brands, we're with consumer brands. There's a whole range of where you can kind of get into this and invest in it, but the point is to not ignore it and pretend it's going to go away. You at least want to benchmark and see where you are now compared to your competitors, and at least see the top sources within your sector that are influencing the answers, not only for kind of benchmarking, but to also ensure that it's pulling the most correct and trustworthy answers, particularly around your brand and products.
So in summary, we can say with confidence that search behaviours have shifted. People are fundamentally consuming their content in a different manner. People aren't clicking. They don't know where the content necessarily has originally come from, and they're trusting the brand, the environment of the large language model that they're using. Traditional SEO no longer guarantees visibility. We can say too that inaction is a risk. If you're not visible in AI responses, you risk invisibility. But it's worse than that. You lose influence, and you're in danger of being represented in the wrong way. And finally, there is reason to be optimistic and confident that GEO belongs to communications. Its comms messages, earned influence, and content, they're all critical to being discovered in AI. So we don't have to be passive. We can shape, we have the tools to, we can shape and optimize the brand experience within large language models. So thank you very much for joining us for this quick tour through thoughts of GEO. Before we wrap up, I will answer a few of the questions. Anything that appears in the chat will be passed through to us. And we've also received some questions in advance. So let's start one for you, Rob. How is it that GEO is different from traditional SEO? How much do they overlap and do they influence each other?
So some of the fundamentals in the theory, there is a bit of overlap, especially with your own content. So with GEO and SEO, SEO it was very keywords based. You would optimize your own website, you'd structure it well, with the end goal is you would appear in Google search results on page 1 or 2, kind of high up, and people would click through. But that's kind of where SEO ends. It's kind of one-dimensional. GEO is fully 3-dimensional. So we're looking at optimizing your own website, but we're also optimizing the YouTube channel, LinkedIn long-form content. We're optimizing our media lists and which outlets are publishing our content and our thought leadership. We are monitoring Reddit threads to make sure content is kind of accurate. It's totally holistic, and we're also doing it not with the aim of being in Google search results, but with our content owned or earned influencing AI answers. So we're not bothered about being one of those blue links on Google. We want our content or our kind of correct latest information featuring in those model answers, whether it's Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini. So it's kind of a SEO on steroids, where it goes from just pure kind of being on a Google search page to being embedded within the answer.
Great. And another question here: how quickly can AI search optimization result in changes once we start optimizing? So I think from our experience, I'd say that the results can be faster than traditional search because LLMs refresh their sources so frequently. So if you have success, changes in earned media, new content, press releases, that content can influence the answers really quite quickly, days or weeks, not months. But of course, that's one of the challenges as well. It can move the other way. So it's never a case of doing it once and then being confident for an extended period of months. Optimization is really like a mindset, I would say. It's something that needs to be committed to, watched, improved, and consistently be fed high quality and updated content. I think that's the key for how you stay optimized in the environment. And another question: how different are the various LLMs? So if something works for one model or in one model, does it guarantee that it will work for all of them? Rob, do you want to do this one?
Yeah, so unfortunately, not always the case. All these models are, of course, built on different kind of algorithms. They're being updated at different speeds and at different rates. At one day, Gemini will be the leader, then Copilot, and then it's Claude will launch a new kind of update, and then ChatGPT. So they're constantly racing each other. So we'll never kind of be able to optimize everything perfectly, and then it applies to all models equally. But the fundamentals are basically the same across all models. They're looking for robust, trustworthy sources to quote from, whether it's client brand websites, whether it's trustworthy news sources and editorial pieces, whether it's detailed kind of thought leadership on company blogs or press releases, whether it's very kind of optimized, transcript approved YouTube videos where people go into a lot of detail and reviews. So getting those fundamentals right applies to all of them. So yeah, it's a case, which is why our tool, we can monitor, and we do monitor all the different models individually and collectively. So if we get the fundamentals right, it should usually create an uplift for all, but it's not a kind of universal one tick kind of update everything in one go, unfortunately.
Yeah, that would make it easier, wouldn't it? Great. Well, thank you. Thanks very much, Rob. Thank you to all of you for joining us today. We appreciate, and please do link in with us, get in touch with us if you have any questions or comments. Thank you ever so much, and we will see you next time for a wee talk. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.